Hi, my douchies. Welcome to the Alchemize podcast. My name is Destiny, and thank you again for being here. I use the internet as my personal journal, and every entry is me talking about whatever I want. Today, the topic that we're covering is delusion. Delulu is the solulu, but not for everyone. Not all the time. I definitely was in a place at some point for a few years where delusion was not my friend. It was not serving me at all. And yet I thought to myself, Delulu is the solulu. There's times when you should put self-improvement above your feelings. And I had a hard time coming to grips with the fact that I wasn't doing that. You know, it's very easy to dismiss not improving when you know that it's not necessarily a big or great improvement that you have to make. If I can take a small example to help you guys understand what I mean when I say this, I have never been content with the way that I look. I know, crazy. But the point I'm trying to make with that is that I was never at my, let's say, dream body image, you know, like the beauty standard in my brain was never what I see back in the mirror. And a lot of my life, I just thought that that's just how things are. I just needed to change the way that I considered myself. I just needed to brainwash myself into liking myself more, which is partially true, but not in the way that I was thinking of it. I was at a point where I would think, oh, there's nothing I can do. This is who I am. This is how I was born. And there's no extra improvements I can make to enhance or make myself feel more beautiful. I just thought, okay, I just need to somehow come to terms with the person that I am and then move on. Somehow be happy, not being totally in the version of myself that I hoped I could ever reach. But then I noticed that people who I saw that seemed like they were happy the way that they weren't just born that way. You know, it's not a crazy concept. Obviously, they weren't born that way. But the way that I was thinking of it in my mind was as if they had somehow won the genetics lottery and they just were the beautiful, amazing people that they were. They didn't work for it. They didn't do their best. It was just, boom, there. And when I started realizing that that's not the case at all, I realized that maybe if I put a little bit more effort into who I want to become, I can also reach that, you know? And I'm the type of person, I'm very sensitive, or I respond pretty well to tough love when I'm in my healed stage. For example, I remember a time in my life where even constructive criticism felt like I was being attacked because I was experiencing such low self-esteem that everything that someone would tell me, for example, someone was like, you know what would be great? If instead of walking from left to right, you went from right to left. That way your walking pattern would look way better, for example. I would consider that as a personal attack and I would be like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I suck. Everything is terrible. Because this person just told me I should walk from left to right, you know? I felt that somehow that made me less than when someone had something to say. But the more I allow myself to feel the uncomfortability of being constructively or unconstructively, however people bring it, to be criticized, I notice that first of all, I get tougher and I feel less inclined to that emotional sensitivity. And also I can actually learn something from it. A lot of times where especially my husband, he would tell me things like, oh, Des, you know what would be great if you worked on this or this? Or what if you tried that? And I would see it as him not being happy with me. I would see it as him attacking my character, or I would think to myself, oh, he must not like me. He must want me to change the person who I am. But no, he saw the potential and he wanted me to live up to it, you know? And I also wanted that. The higher version of me was begging me to step into that. But I wasn't ready for it myself. And when I finally started to accept that tough love, that constructive criticism isn't a personal attack, that's when I started using it as a big tool in my life. Whenever I looked at myself very honestly in the mirror and I could tell the points that I have to work on to become the better version of myself, and I actually worked at it instead of just deluluing my way into believing that I can stay the way that I am is when things started to shift and change. And so a thought that popped up for me was, it's not that your loved ones hate you, it's just that you cannot take accountability for your actions. And I really related to that for a while. You know, I wasn't honest with myself. I pushed my feelings, especially, under the rug, and I allowed myself to just pass by. Now that I've accepted that I'm the only person that can make the changes necessary for me to become the best version of myself, I just use constructive criticism, looking at myself sometimes harshly but also honestly in the mirror, as a tool to just push myself forward. It's been a journey, but there's a lot of points and references about self-growth that have just become so grounding for me. For example, every part of you that you refuse to look at is exactly what's holding you back from becoming the person that you want to be. What I'm trying to say with all this rambling is that when you embrace the shadow and shed light on the parts of you that you don't like to look at, you actually improve and become a way, way, way better person. And that takes accountability. That takes not being delusional, because the delusion that will help you get to your dream self is the type for a different video. We'll come to that. But the first thing you have to do is face yourself. Stand in the mirror. Don't be afraid of what you see. Allow every part of you to come up. Accept her, and then change her or him, whoever's watching. Now it's about knowing that our future is our own. It's such a great feeling to know that nothing that you're going through in this life is unrepairable, is unmanageable, is something that you can never get out of, because most of the suffering that we experience, we inflict upon ourselves. So when you decide that you want to look at the parts that are suffering, but make the conscious decision to become a different person, the sky becomes a little less gray. And maybe at some point it'll even be sunny. Maybe at some point there'll be a rainbow. You never know unless you try. I think that's it for this one. Like, comment, subscribe. Stopa.